Hello, this is the sixth post on the Fajak Ahoy channel. We have Saturday, April 19th, 2025. After my dry paddling attempts over there on the dining table, I spent a long time thinking about which principle I would like to use for the convertible deck struts.
And despite the enormous advances in brain research, thoughts can still only be captured very inadequately on film today. At least not as long as they are still sloshing around like porridge between the brain convolutions, difficult to grasp or even represent graphically. So, from the end of March, there's not really much to see this time, except, well, why not? My construction diary. Here are two photos from this time, briefly photographed. What kept the porridge in my head viscous for an excessively long time was the fact that before I could start constructing the convertible deck struts, I first had to clarify two important boundary conditions. A. Which propulsion type should I choose in kayak mode? Should I stick with a double paddle as originally planned, or should I switch to a rowing paddle or even a propeller? And B. Where the hell is the best place to store all the bike parts when I'm kayaking? Fortunately, I was able to clarify point A relatively quickly for myself. Although I was unable to quickly research any data on the efficiency of the three drive types, the following quickly became clear to me. The screw certainly allows a fairly high power output into the water. However, it remains questionable for me how high the efficiency of a screw drive, including the necessary feed gear, chain, bevel gear, shaft bearing actually is. In any case, the screw drive is technically complex and therefore also vulnerable to, for example, contact with the ground or weedage. The rowing propulsion certainly represents an improvement over the double paddle in terms of efficiency and performance. However, it also requires comparatively high technical complexity, rolling seat outrigger. The deciding factor, however, is the fact that rowing is actually only possible efficiently in calm water. The Fajak, however, should also be as seaworthy as possible. Since the double paddle is probably not far behind rowing in terms of performance and efficiency, but is unbeatable in terms of simplicity, robustness and seaworthiness, the double paddle seems like a good choice to me. So for now, I'll stick with the double paddle. Regarding boundary condition B, the storage of bicycle parts during kayaking, after some experimentation with the model, I was guided by the following principle. Store all heavy bike parts as low as possible in the boat. This greatly benefits A. the center of gravity and thus seaworthiness, and B. it improves accessibility to the boat's storage spaces. The 26-inch front wheel poses a particular problem here. With its outer diameter, it is so bulky that it can only be stowed lower down in the hull if the side rails, which are intended as bending supports in the recumbent operation, are narrowed accordingly in that area. However, a local narrowing of the side spars would also require reinforcement in that area to avoid weakening the fuselage structure in that area. Unfortunately, this would increase the vehicle's weight, thus fundamentally counteracting the strength aspect of lightweight construction. But toads have to be swallowed now and then, no matter how vegan I am. I came up with this motto almost 2 years ago to better overcome blockages in the development process. So through this principle, I immediately set about sawing the corresponding recess into the fuselage side spars, and suddenly made a very surprising discovery on myself. In my mind, I had been imagining the whole time how I could gloss over the situation if someone noticed this defect. I wonder if anyone would even notice the defect later. I wouldn't necessarily have to make a big deal about it. Holy cow! Now I'd caught myself. I'd been able to observe the inner fervor with which I was already practicing presenting only the pros to a potential critic and dismissing all the con arguments as insignificant. And this is happening to me. I actually want to place the greatest emphasis on the developing this Fajak development project openly and authentically, without hiding any skeletons in the closet, without hiding problems, without sugarcoating new technical achievements, but rather simply presenting the project and perhaps later the product as the unvarnished truth of human endeavor. At that moment, it became clear to me how deeply rooted in all of us is the desire to present our trivial human actions in a positive light to our fellow human beings. Humans, the herd animals, of course. We depend on one another, and recognition plays an important role in this. According to Maslow, recognition and appreciation rank fourth on the pyramid of human needs. If we now recall that one of the most important human characteristics or distinguishes features from animals is our extremely frequent and intensive use of tools, i.e. technology in general, then it becomes clear how great the human temptation is to seek recognition through the apparent mastery of technology. Technology has long since penetrated all areas of our lives and is becoming even more deeply and fundamentally embedded there at a breathtaking pace. The better we succeed in portraying ourselves as masters of technology, the more likely we are to receive general recognition and appreciation from our fellow human beings, and the more likely a company can expect to steer its product toward high sales figures. Technology tempts us to pretend to be the magician we are not. We should rather motivate each other to have the courage, the honesty, to recognize and name bad magic as such, to authentically admit that we cannot really foresee the consequences of our technological magic, or that our magic has unpleasant side effects, instead of acting like magicians who can no longer get rid of the ghost they have summoned. Reporting makes you free is a saying in the military. We should apply this maxim to the business world. What the private reports to the company commander, the researcher or product developer should report to society, to the global public. Humans are only too happy to define themselves through their technology as the masters of nature. Over the centuries, however, technology has proven to be a double-edged sword. To the extent that we learn to control nature, we degenerated into the controlled by our technologies. As long as we deceive each other about the consequences of our technologies, we make ourselves ridiculous lackeys of them. If we wanted to control nature, we would first have to learn to control our technologies and thus ourselves. Attitudes such as humility, modesty, attentiveness, and even charity must find their way into applied research and development on the one hand, and into society as a whole as the recipient of these technologies on the other. We should learn to blow the whistle. What is highly valued as fair play in football should not be punished in all other areas, including the economy. Our current approach to technology seems to me like children sitting in a room already overflowing with toys, refusing to tidy up and clamoring for more toys. Let's finally grow up. On this journey, the development of the Fajak, I want to at least make a humble adolescent start toward a world of adult society. And as a developer, I want to be my own whistleblower as best I can. It's interesting that over the last few days, I have been observing how much this thought stresses me out as a developer. How it scares me that I could completely ruin this already marginal Fajak project if I start highlighting problems or even potential risk associated with its use. But I don't think I can go back, because the ship of Journey 1 set sail far too many years ago. So I'll have to compile a list, which I'll publish on the Werkstatt Nordstern website. It will openly list all the current known shortcomings and risks of the Fajak as far as I'm aware of them. Because no one is as deeply involved in product development as the people who work on it. So, dear researchers of applied technologies and product developers of this world, have the courage to be authentic.